to the Niche Pursuits Podcast. Are you ready to discover some niche business ideas that actually work? Well, it's time for a motivational kick to jumpstart your next big idea. Here's your host, Spencer Haas.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Niche Pursuits Podcast. I'm Spencer Haas, your host from nichepursuits.com. And today I have Perrin with me, of course. Perrin, how you doing?
Pretty good. How's it going, everybody?
And also I have Justin and Joe from empireflippers.com. How you guys doing?
Spencer, what's up? We got a four-way going, a four-way call. This is awesome.
Yeah, hopefully we don't talk all over each other.
Absolutely. I think we're going to knock it out of the park, though. 4 heads are better than 1. So we're going to jump right into it and start talking about some changes that you guys have made in your business. But really, I want to dive deep into buying and selling websites. That's been a big kick of mine this year. I bought several sites, and you guys are the experts when it comes to the marketplaces surrounding buying and selling sites. So I really want to pick your brain on some of those things. But let's start it off. You guys went through an entire website design change, kind of a rebrand, or I guess capping off your rebrand, maybe, if you will. How is the new website design going?
We've had, a ton of positive comments, feedback from people going, hey, I love the new site, love the new look. To be honest with you, it was really costly, both in terms of money spent and time put into it. We normally argue when you're starting off like a new business or a new project, get yourself a theme from Theme Forest, slap it up and put up some content. But this one, we've already got an established business with revenue, and we really want to, I think, project a different image than we have in the past because we're attracting a new type of buyer and seller.
Yeah, and so as we were moving up the value chain to attract bigger buyers, 6-figure buyers, we were having some trouble with the old website, especially the marketplace. It was very confusing, misleading, and just it didn't appeal to these high-end buyers. And when I'm calling them on the phone and we're doing sales calls and you're trying to get down to the nitty-gritty of making a deal happen, the old brand was just really hurting us. So this makes it very easy. It makes it very simple to push buyers directly to listing pages and have the information in front of them that they need.
And feel comfortable with it, right? And look at the listing and say, okay, well, this looks like, it's a professional marketplace. They know their stuff, and I'm willing to do business. We've actually seen people that have been to our site previously start coming back and go, wow, love where you guys are going. This is what I'm talking about. So the feedback there has been really good.
Yeah, I have to make a big shout out to John Myers, who helped us a lot with this design, johnmyers.com. So we wouldn't have been able to pull it off without him. And it's still not done yet. We actually have another revision coming of the listing pages. We're going to have some funky graphs and better way to present the data. And there will always be little changes, little things that we're doing, but he's helped a lot. So we picked the right designer, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it looks great.
It's awesome.
Yeah, have you guys actually seen any noticeable change in business as far as either increased traffic or increased number of listings? Have you seen any impact on your bottom line because of the design that you can tie to that anyways?
Well, we definitely got a big bump in traffic from the redesign, but that's mostly people, coming back and checking it out and us promoting it and that type of thing. I don't know that we have a direct tie-in or like how well that will work in the long term in terms of traffic. I can say that we had our best month in September at like just over $250,000 worth of sales. So we keep having those like best months, like every couple of months we have a new one. So, we're definitely, moving in the right direction. So we're happy about that. And I'm hoping I'm going to prove Joe wrong. We're going to have 1 month that's even bigger, hopefully by the end of the year. He's looking at me funny. But.
Yeah, Q4 is always tough in the brokerage business. But I would say in terms of the redesign, in talking to people on the phone, which I do a lot of, I'm not hearing the same complaints that we got before. And in fact, I'm hearing very good feedback, and it's getting easier to move up the value chain.
Yeah, no, awesome. So let's dive into maybe some more basic questions for people maybe starting out, that are considering buying a website. Can you give us an idea of what are some of the advantages of buying a website versus maybe building one from scratch?
Well, this is definitely an advantage, but it's more expensive up front by far to buy a website. To build one from scratch, you're talking a bit of time and keyword research, slapping up a domain and a hosting account. Really, it's not much more than that to get you started. But it takes a lot more cash up front to buy a website. The advantage, though, when you're buying a website is you're buying one that's already been proven in the marketplace. What I mean by that, it already has earnings. So if the site is up to, $1,000 a month, $2,000 a month in net profit per month, the market has already said, this site is offering or talking about something I'm interested in, right? People are willing to buy stuff or click through to stuff based on the content that's on that site already. I also think that you get a better ROI on your time. So if I buy a site that's making $2,000 a month and, I put, time into it and over a year I improve it by 50% or it goes up to $3,000 a month, that's a hell of a lot better than if I take a site from $0 to $300 a month in terms of value. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So you're putting all these hours in, but you get paid off. Whereas, a brand new site, it's so front loaded in terms of time. I mean, you're putting all this time in and you're working for pennies. So it's really just a question of, do you want to leverage your cash or your time?
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing for me, though, is when you're buying a site, you naturally have a winner to work with. When you're building, you're going to have losers mixed in there. And Spencer, you know this, that a percentage of your sites that you're building are just going to be losers. When we were building small niche sites, I mean, it could get as high as 50 or 60%. And that was just so disheartening for me to build all this content, buy all these domains, put all this out there, and then just have a site that did nothing. So I think buying gives you that real jump start and not have to deal with any losers.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And I have some thoughts about, buying sites, and maybe you guys can chime in here after I share what I have to share. But I've started buying some sites this year. I bought 4 of them, and seeing it as a business opportunity or as a business model in and of itself, it's actually very intriguing, and I'm enjoying it quite a bit because I'm able to do exactly what you guys said. I'm buying an established property. For example, I just bought one that's making now about $2,000 a month, and so I'm able to skip over that entire 6 months to a year that it would have taken to build a similar website from scratch. And even then, there's a lot of risk that I would never be making that much with the site. So I'm kind of guaranteed that $2,000 a month in revenue. But the exciting thing is that usually these sites have some sort of established authority as well. And so when I start adding new content to that site, it's so much easier to get that content to rank in Google than it would be on a brand new domain, a brand new site. And so the growing it from $2,000 to $3,000 is so much easier than it would be to start a site from $0 to $1,000. So
think about this, like if you actually, and when you talk about like strategic purchases, it gets even crazier. So let's say, for example, you bought, 1,000 hosting accounts and they're paying $10 a month to someone or whatever. Well, yes, you get that $10,000 a month in profit, but what you get are 1,000 customers that you can market your SEO services to. You can market Longtail Pro to. It brings them into your fold. If you have other products and services you can offer them, okay, with the $10,000 a month you're getting, that's awesome. But the opportunity to add them into the fold and to offer them other products and services makes it astronomically more valuable.
Very interesting. Do you have any sites you're willing to sell me in that position?
We did have one, but it wasn't a good fit as a weird hosting account. I don't think it would work for you. But yes, we'll be talking to you if we find something.
No, absolutely. So, Perrin, did you have any follow-ups to the sort of the business model behind buying or even selling sites?
Well, yeah, I was just going to add that we've seen that it's also just much, much faster, and we spent the whole year building out sites that were at the end of 8 months earning a couple $100. Then we bought one that was earning $2,000, and we increased the revenue 33% almost right off the bat by adding a handful of links and about 10 articles. It was just really mind-boggling. And also, to what you Empire Flippers folks were just saying, we've seen people do that strategic site buying. Matt Paulson was on our podcast talking about that same thing, where he just slowly built up a network of financial sites and offered them all the same products, and he's doing really, really well.
People do that at a really high level. So there's a company called Quinn Street, and you can actually use them for like lead generation. They pay you per lead that you deliver. But what they did is they went around the financial blogger community, and they were buying up sites anywhere from like $300,000 up to several $1 million. And they were just snatching them up and adding them to their portfolio. So I don't know how much exactly they spent. Let's say $20 million or something on all these different individual or personal bloggers and people talking about credit card offers and stuff. But they snatched all those up to basically use their authority. They would keep the bloggers on for like 6 months or a year or 2 years, still talking about the same stuff. And they, built themselves, a monster of a blog network, I guess you could say. But yeah, so there's a lot of different ways you can do buying sites. You can do it on the small end or the big end. I would say with you guys though, you have a lot of experience in building sites. So you kind of know what to look for. And you guys got, I'd say lucky, but lucky in that you have years of experience in building out, profitable sites.
Right.
Lucky in the fact that you know what a good site looks like for you, and so you kind of know, how to pick the right sites for your portfolio and your style of building.
Yeah, but even you struggled a little bit with that Pinterest site, I think, right?
Yeah, we did.
Yep.
It's interesting that even someone with a lot of building experience still can find one that maybe it's not a loser, but it's not the huge winner that they thought it was going to be. So
yeah, and that shows that you should buy like sites that are in your wheelhouse or in your box. And like, I know that, some people are like, well, what's the best type of site for me? And that's kind of an individual question based on, are you good at knocking out content? Are you good at split testing? Are you good at finding the right monetization offers? And so the site that you should pick is probably going to be dependent on, your skill sets.
Sure.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point because that's exactly what happened with that Pinterest site. It was out of my norm. I've never used Pinterest. I've never driven traffic using Pinterest, and so this was a whole different ball game for me. And so I think that's exactly why I haven't been able to do very well with the site. It's basically been flat, as far as earnings the entire time.
It's a learning experience though,
Yep.
too, right? So you've got to play with Pinterest and try to figure it out. We call that like the tinkerer's approach or the DIY David profile, where you want to get in there and play with it and learn it a bit. And it costs you some money, but at least you're playing with a site that already has traffic, that, has something going for it. So the site was a bit of a winner. Now you can just kind of tweak it and figure it out, reverse engineer, and see if you can apply it to other sites you own.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's go ahead and dive into what some of those things that people can look for when they are buying a site. Because like you said, I do have a lot of experience and I have things that I like to look at. But from your point of view, what are some red flags, some warning signs that people should look out for when they're trying to buy a website?
Well, let me tell you, there's just a lot. We just got back from a Chiang Mai workshop that we did here. And we talked about doing due diligence. There are a lot of red flags that can come up, but the most common are stuff like bot or fake traffic, stuff like the domain being tanked or de-indexed, changes to affiliate programs. So people were getting 12% and now they're only getting 8%. These are the kind of things that we see really rookie buyers falling for on stuff like Flippa.com or something like that.
Yeah, so usually what I do first thing is when I see a listing, I contact the owner and I ask them to add me to Google Analytics right away. And any serious buyer will do that. So if they refuse, I just move on. But even Google Analytics, can that traffic be faked? If I'm seeing it on Google Analytics and I see that it gets 1,000 visitors a day, are there still even some warning signs that I could see in there?
Well, one of the things we don't want to give away all our secrets because then that's like a roadmap for scamming us, right? But I can tell you, we require Google Analytics or Clicky, and those are the only two that we accept. And there's a reason for that, is that we're able to much more easily spot bot traffic, fake traffic, not great traffic with those two platforms. So yes, all traffic can be faked. And if you don't know what you're doing in Google Analytics, you can look at it, see the traffic, and it might not be great traffic. One of the ways that we find, bot traffic, let's say it's an AdSense site that's for sale and we're vetting it, because we have to vet all the sites that, that get listed on our platform. We reject about a third, anywhere from 30 to 40% of the sites that people list. And some of the reasons we reject them are fake traffic. So in Google Analytics, what you'll see is when you start segmenting the traffic by, let's say, operating system, or you start segmenting by city, you'll see that a large majority of the traffic or a piece of the traffic, the time on site is like less than 3 seconds, right, from one particular segment. Or you'll see that the time on site from these 5 cities in the U.S. are less than 3 seconds, where the rest is longer and more diversified. So you can start to see little hubs that they've been using for their bots, scattered throughout the U.S. or abroad.
Yeah, I would definitely say that Google Analytics traffic can be faked, but like Justin was saying, really you have to use some sort of bot traffic or something like that. You're not going to be able to reverse engineer the Google Analytics code and change it somehow, obviously.
And screenshots can be fake too. I'm talking about actually digging in there and segmenting. So that's important to remember. You could fake a screenshot, but if you have access, you can go in there and dig through it.
And that's why we always say it's better to accept only Google Analytics or Clicky, which are hosted platforms. Whereas self-hosted analytics, something like AW Stats or something like that, that's on the hosting provider of the site, that code could be changed and display basically whatever the owner wants.
Here's a quick tip for you too, Spencer. You said you reach out to the seller first to get Google Analytics access. One of the things that we do, and it's been insanely useful to us, is to actually get information on the seller. And by information, I mean have them verify their identity. What's their Facebook page? Do they have real friends? Did they go to a barbecue last weekend? These are the types of things like, did their friends comment on some goofy picture they put on Facebook? Do they have a Twitter account? Do they have LinkedIn, a professional LinkedIn with contacts? Like, these are the types of things that if you look at it, less than 5 minutes, you can see whether it's a real person or not. And if it's a real person, many scammers would rather not use their real name or their real identity to scam. So it knocks out any of those scammers that would rather use a fake identity. Now, there are scammers out there that will scam under their own name and walk away like a boss and feel good about it. But at least it cuts out, a good portion of the scammers right there. So we're always looking for, how to funnel scammers out of our process. And that's actually one of the first things we look at, is try to funnel out people that don't have real identities online.
Yeah, you know what? I really like that you guys do that, actually, because you go to Flippa or someplace, tons of the usernames are just fake usernames, and it can be hard to verify. But that's a really great point. I mean, if you can verify that they have this history online that you can verify and check, that's a great sign as somebody that's probably that's really them. They're really selling their website. So let's dive into good signs to look for a little bit more. So, looking for a real person, of course, verifying Google Analytics, getting access. What else? What are some other things that people can look for and are signs of a great website to buy?
Well, as we talked about earlier, one person's weakness is another's opportunity. So it's very specific to an individual buyer and their skill set. With you, for example, Pinterest wasn't your strength, right? It wasn't like a traffic strength for you. So it was more of a learning opportunity, like one of those, costly learning opportunities. But, you got to get in there and test through it. Whereas if it would have been your strength, like our buddy Nate Ginsberg or something, who does some Pinterest stuff, he could have just got in there and probably crushed it, because that's what he does for a living. He does the Pinterest stuff. So Yeah. I mean, it depends on your skill set. If it required the type of content or is in a niche that you're more comfortable with, for example, some of the other sites that you've purchased, that's a great opportunity for you to crush it. So a really great website to buy is going to be specific to you. One other thing I'd mention is that some newbie or just starting out, first time buyers are looking for, a website that's diversified in terms of traffic, monetization methods, that kind of thing. And I think a website doesn't have to be diversified on its own if you have a portfolio of sites that's diversified. So for example, if you have let's say that majority of your websites right now rely on organic traffic, and there's a really good site for you to purchase that relies on paid traffic, that might be, and it's strictly paid traffic, only paid traffic. That might be a good purchase for you because it diversifies your portfolio. That site's not diversified on its own, but it helps diversify your overall portfolio, which is important.
Right.
Yeah, no, that makes great sense. So, the listings for people maybe that don't know, that are listening in, the listings on your marketplace are basically all taking the last 60 days of earnings, multiplying the average by 20, and that's the sale price, right?
It's actually the last 90 day of
90 days. Mm-hmm.
Right.
Okay, and so people come on there and they see the price. It's basically 20 times monthly earnings. And I don't know if this is something that you want to share, but I was curious. are any of the prices negotiable on your marketplace?
Look, we've said this before in other podcasts, actually. The dirty little secret about any list price is that all prices are negotiable. So, yes, definitely if you want to make a reasonable offer on a site that you feel is a good fit for you, please go ahead and we'll take that to the seller. But I can tell you that if you come in with some sort of lowball offer, we're probably going to just tell the seller to discount that or not even take it, because we usually get very close to list price.
Yeah. Okay. The other thing is that, we help guide both the sellers and buyers in terms of like what a good offer is and what might be a good purchase price. So if you come in at, let's say, 15x and the site's only been listed for a week and there's a bunch of other depositors or people looking at the site, we're going to say, nope, that's not a good deal. You're going to get list. Don't worry about that. And tell the buyer straight up, here's the deal. Whereas if the site's been up there for 3 months, is only a little bit of interest, maybe a 15x offer is a starting point at which they can negotiate. But we generally get pretty close to list. Whereas sorry, Joe's pointing at me. What?
So sorry about that. Oh, sorry about that. So the biggest thing is we're beta testing through a valuation tool right now. That's going to really help with getting these sort of multiples down. And I think that 20x may be something that we're pegged to right now, but it might be a variable in the future.
Yeah. So right now we have this valuation tool that we're working on that takes into account like how old the site is. A bunch of different things. Right now it'll vary between like 17x to like 25x on net monthly profit, based on a multitude of factors. We're testing through it right now. It's in beta. Cool. We've had some people running through it, and we're happy you can share the link if you like, and like people can test through it and kind of give us feedback if they think it's valuable or think it's interesting. And you too, if you want to check it out, it'd be helpful. But we're not actually using that for valuations at this point, but we do want to get more data, start collecting it, and seeing if it's something that we want to use in the future.
For sure, yeah, I'd love to check that out. Here's a question that is maybe more timely, something that recently happened. I wrote a huge piece on the private blog network update, if you will. A lot of the links that we had using private blog networks were devalued, and a lot of the sites that we had, of course, dropped in Google, and lots of other people got really it was a thin content update in our Google Webmaster Tools, but we're certain that it really had to do with the links pointing to those sites. Do you guys have an opinion on that? What's your take on the whole PBN update thing?
Sucks, Spencer.
Yeah,
Sucks.
It does.
We went through some hits when we were building out sites ourselves based on Google updates and pandas and penguins and all kinds of stuff. So we definitely feel your pain and your listeners' pain, because we've been through some of that ourselves. We went back and were like closely watching all the listings on our marketplace to see if any of them took hits. None of the sites we had listed at the time took any hits, but we actually had one that was in transition. So it was the buyer had paid full price. We were in the process of transferring the site over to the buyer when it took the hit. So we didn't actually close the deal, meaning we hadn't paid out the seller yet. So because it was in transition, we ended up giving the buyer their money back and giving the site back to the seller. Both were, understanding about the deal. They understood what happened. It was only the second time we actually have had to do that out of all the deals we've done. So it was a bit of a bummer, but it's a trust thing, right? We're in this for the long haul. We want to work with buyers and sellers long term, and we want to do right by both of them. And I think that was the right move.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was. When you guys are vetting sites, are you looking for things like PBN links or maybe other types of shady links, if you will?
Yeah, absolutely. That's something we ask for in our vetting process. It's something we try to look at. We also look to see if they have any foreign links, like links from obvious sort of
porn sites, Russian gambling sites, whatever.
Yeah, that sort of thing. We also look at anchor text variation, and these are the kind of things that could make us decline to list the site, or maybe something we disclose to depositors before they go ahead and purchase.
Do we share AnchorText variation, or is that in the next version?
That's going to be the next version of our listings. We don't share that up front, but we would share it to depositors that ask.
Yeah, okay. Another thing with PBNs, our opinion on that is, yes, we do accept sites with PBNs, but we require sellers to disclose that. If we find PBN links that were not disclosed from the seller, it raises a good question. What else are they not telling us? What other issues are? So it's a reason to look deeper into the site. And we do share with any depositors, exactly, what PBN, what's going on. And we believe that it's their right to choose whether they want to buy with a PBN or not.
Yeah, and something I'd like to say to your builders and your audience is, if you can at all possible when you're building out these authority sites, if you can make the PBN small enough that you can include them in the sale, it would make it so much easier. So
yeah, those are easier deals to get through, especially when we're talking, 50,000 plus deal. So if your site's going to make 2,000 or more a month in net profit, it's a pretty good idea to have a PBN that you can include with the deal.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm sure that would make the buyer a lot more comfortable, because a lot of times, hey, that the seller controls these PBN links, and you might be worried that they're going to do something nefarious and remove those links or something or like that.
Or turn around and point them to a new site they're creating to compete with you. That's a question that some buyers have. We've seen that happen one time with the sites that we sold, where the seller completely screwed the buyer and didn't care their name was out there, so I'm doing it anyway. So that is a risk. One of the ways to mitigate that we've seen buyers use is to give them long-term or even lifetime payouts, anywhere from 2 to 5% of the value of the site, and continue paying the seller to keep those links in place, or based on some earning amount based on those links staying in place. So that's a pretty interesting approach to ensuring that those links stay there and that the seller is on your team.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Parent, do you have any follow-up questions to that, or any additional questions that you have?
Not to the PBN update specifically, but I know eventually we wanted to start talking about selling sites, and maybe a good transition is to talk about selling as a business model, because a lot of people are buying sites as a business model, or to bolster their existing business, but a lot of our readers are also interested in building sites and selling them. Do you see people selling sites as a business model?
Yeah, so there's a couple of different ways that sellers can, make income doing this. There's the build from scratch and sell model, where they're constantly building, they're tossing the losers, selling off the sites that turn out to be winners, and they just understand that there's some losers, some winners. They build them up to a point and then sell them off. So those are kind of they're your homegrown, they're trying to build them from scratch crowd. You also have like the buy and sell crowd. So they're buying up some sites, selling others, growing their portfolio overall, but trying to get like the right sites, the sites they think are a good opportunity for them to either scale out or they have an opportunity to kind of blowing up, that kind of thing. Then you have, this is an interesting position that we deal with a couple of people in this position, where they broker the deals for a percentage of the deal, both on the buying and selling side. So they'll bring in a deal, they'll have their investor or their seller, and they'll help them kind of process the deal and take a piece of that deal long term. That's kind of interesting approach. So it's like brokers or independents that work with like mostly offline guys, and will either add value in terms of like owning or managing that site long term, or basically just helping them kind of through the process.
Yeah, so I've bought a few sites, and eventually I may want to flip them, resell them. How quickly after buying a site can I then list it on your marketplace? I'm just thinking, yeah, if I can buy a site for a really low multiple and then turn around and sell it on your marketplace for a higher multiple, just wondering how quickly I'm actually able to do that.
Well, we need to have at least 3 months of earnings. So if you did make any changes to the site, or you changed the monetization method or something like that, we would need to have 3 months of earnings in order to prove that. But if you have proof, like it's some affiliate program that was fully transferred to you, and you have dashboard proof or something like that, I mean, I guess you could do it with less than 3 months. Like if you bought it on Flippa and got it converted, it would be possible. But 3 months is going to be kind of the measuring stick.
And that 3 months would not work for a seasonal site. So if your site was about snowblowers and you were trying to sell this in March, yeah, that's not going to cut it, man. So we're going to need more data than that. So like a seasonal site, that wouldn't work. And we do prefer stable or increasing traffic and earnings. We actually have, one, I'd say, like portfolio buyer that specifically looks for decreasing traffic and earnings. So, not all buyers are the same. Not all buyers are looking for the same stuff. We will take those. In general, though, most of our buyers prefer increasing. But I don't know, man. One person's trash is another man's treasure, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, we've listed declining sites very, very rarely. The only time is when it just doesn't seem directly related to any sort of update or penalization that's happening to the site.
Maybe like neglect or something.
Yeah, just neglect, or maybe the fact that it just recently lost rankings or something like that, and that's really the reason why. But it's going to stable out soon. So sharply declining, that's just not something that we're going to get into.
There is some opportunity there in buying and selling sites. We have a guy within the last year that's made over $100,000 based on buying and selling sites. So yeah, there's some opportunity in the margins there for sure.
Heck, Justin and I want to do that. I mean, we're going to start, if we get any free time this year, we wanted to sit down and go on Flippa ourselves and buy sites at a low multiple that pass our vetting process, and then go ahead and just put them on the market.
That's interesting. Think about, what do you guys think about this? I have a question for you. I'm going to turn the table.
All right.
We broker sites, allow people to buy and sell in our marketplace. Would it seem odd if we were buying and selling sites on our own through our marketplace? Doesn't that put us in a position where we're competing with our own customers?
I don't know. I don't know that I see a problem with that. I think maybe as long as you disclose it that, hey, we're selling through our own marketplace, I don't know that I'd have a problem with that. I mean, you're doing the work. You're out finding the valuable listing. So you're still providing some business value there by finding this. Hey, it's, you went to the garage sale and found the treasure. You're just turning around and dusting it off and selling it at full price.
Yeah, as long as you're not putting a big pop-up ad that says, "Hey, buy this special listing" or something, you're probably okay.
Like a big arrow pointing to it. This one's way better, fellas. Buy this one. No, we've actually had this we've gone through like 3 quarterly strategy meetings like this on the plate. And it's one of those points we always get to and we're like, did we do this yet? Nope. Are we going to? I don't know. Maybe next quarter. I don't know. We keep putting it off. I guess we'll reserve the right to, but when we get to it.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thought in the back of my head is I've found a couple of, like I said, great purchases that I made. And, I don't know how long I'm going to hold on to these sites, but sounds like I need to hold on to them for at least 3 months to get that consistent history, traffic and earnings history, and then if I want to list them. I mean, honestly, Empire Flippers is the place to sell a site. I mean, because of the multiples that you guys are able to command, I mean, it's not even a thought, really. It's like if I want to sell a site, it's going to go through Empire Flippers just because I know it's going to bring in the highest multiple.
Well, it's weird, Spencer, because Flippa raised their success fee from 5% to 10%, and I actually I like them being in the market, and them raising it to 10% is actually benefits us. I'm not sure it benefits the industry though, because them getting closer to the brokerage, like the extra value that we provide makes it like an easy choice to go with us. But I actually think there should be kind of a DIY or do-it-yourself option for people, and at a lower success fee. I thought Flippa was that. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that kind of expands. Flippa, for anyone who's not familiar, is kind of the eBay for buying and selling websites. And we like to consider ourselves all the sites, all the quality sites that would have sold on Flippa sell with Empire Flippers. So we like to we like to guys.
For sure. What other marketplaces are there out there? I mean, clearly there's you guys, there's Flippa, and then there's large brokerages, I guess, where people are out contacting individual website owners and looking for deals and making deals. Is there any other marketplaces out there for buying and selling sites? And so, if there is, how are you guys different?
So, Flippa is the largest, right? They're the eBay for buying and selling websites, and they've been the market leader for a long time. There's a new one that just popped up recently. It's called Free Market, and it's actually run by the guys, the freelancer guys. They recently purchased the Warrior Forum.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so they're really interesting. If you look at them, they're starting to compete with the Flippa guys. Those are the guys that own SitePoint, that own 99 Designs. So they're starting to compete with them on multiple levels. It's like these two kind of bigger internet companies start, a little smaller depending on your perspective, but they're starting to like kind of battle it out in these different markets. So they're kind of going after Flippa in this particular instance by creating Free Market. The problem is that, it's basically free listing fees. So and it's Warrior Forum, right? So they ended up with just a ton of kind of junky, crappy listings, and like everyone's kind of moaning about it. But I think they have a big enough, like a wide enough audience where they could do something pretty cool and actually make a run on Flippa. I just think how they've gone about it so far has been poor, but we'll see how that kind of shapes up in the next year or two. I'm watching it pretty closely. But anyway, aside from those guys, there are a couple of other places you can look, like Biz Buy Sell. They mostly sell like offline businesses, but there's a portion where they have online businesses as well, websites. And then there's a company called Centurica, and they basically pull in some other broker listings and kind of provide a curated list of broker sites that are available from brokers like, let's say, FE International, Quiet Light Brokerage, us, and others. Most of the other brokerages, they're looking for sites that are 500,000 plus, at least 100,000 plus, and we've kind of made our niche in the 10,000 to 200,000 range, and we've been like slowly moving up the value chain. So, a $50,000 site, an $80,000 site isn't really worth it to the Quiet Light brokerage guys when they're doing $1 million deals, whereas, to us, like that's our bread and butter.
Yeah, they would rather live on 2 or 3 deals a year, whereas we would like to, 2 or 300.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So, no, that's good to know. I mean, I think you guys have carved out your niche pretty well there for, who your target audience is, the types of sites you're looking to sell. So I think you've done a good job there.
One of the things I think that separates us from the marketplaces, for example, like we have buyer protection, so we don't disclose the niche or the URL. Whereas on Flippa, and you buy a site, you're going to deal with 2 dozen copycats. I mean, there are video tutorials on how to go to Flippa, look for sites that have been sold, and copy that exact site so that you can create it for yourself. We also help, sellers prepare all their documentation. We manage all of the, the tire kickers that come in or looking. We actually migrate the site. And then, like for brokers, a lot of them have like kind of a one-off list that they've built up over years that when they have a new list, they kind of email them, see if they want to buy the site. And if they don't, then they just kind of got to move on. So, they may have one list that they're sending it to, whereas we have like a ton of traffic. We have, I think, a wider audience than any other broker out there. So we're constantly getting people through every month. So, you have a better chance at selling over time with us than you're going to get with other brokers because they don't have that kind of traffic or audience.
Yeah, and I would say above and beyond the do-it-yourself places, the other marketplaces, we're the only marketplace that's going to help you negotiate a good deal. So whether you're a buyer or a seller, we can help get a deal done between the two because we've done a lot of these.
Yeah, we find a special pride in like when a buyer and seller get stuck. Like it's so crazy. There's like a little tweak to the deal that could be done that neither had considered that both are cool with that helps actually close the deal and both parties are happy. So, we love exploring those and kind of testing through it to see if we can find a win-win, for both the buyer and the seller.
Yeah. So on that point with buyers and sellers, do you have a lot of buyers and only a few sellers or vice versa? I mean, are you guys looking for more buyers or are you looking for more sellers right now?
Oh, the marketplace problem.
Yeah. It's anyone with any kind of marketplace, whether it's, Airbnb, it's eBay, it's anyone trying to start off a marketplace, they're going to run into the problem of, it's like running 2 businesses at once, right? Until you reach that critical mass, you just simply are not going to have enough on one side, at least. I'd say, we have a fair amount of sellers and we're doing good business, but I'd say especially under the $100,000 site range, we have more buyers than sellers. So it's an inventory problem for us. We need more inventory. And the fact that we're a curated marketplace where not just anyone can list, like we have to actually go through and vet the site, means that we have to hold up or limit our inventory to sites that, qualify, basically.
Yeah, I would say a lot of our buyers are very specific. So they want a site that is passive, AdSense or Amazon, doesn't use PBN links, and happens to be in the jewelry niche. It's like, okay, well, try to find one of those for you, but it's tough, right? So, a lot of times as soon as something comes up that does fit his category, man, he clicks the buy now button and it's gone. But, if we could get more inventory with more options for our buyers to look at, I think that would be useful. Now, talk to me in 6 months and we might have the other problem. I don't know.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, like, if we're now, okay, let's focus on sellers. Let's get more sites for sale. And we really focus on that. And a year later, we're like, oh, my God, we need more buyers. So, yeah, I'd say for the last year or so, we need more sellers because we've been growing quite heavily. We'll see if we reach that mass where we need more buyers. But that hasn't happened quite yet.
Yeah, so are you guys doing anything to go out and find more sellers? Obviously you can sit here and wait for people to contact you, but are you doing any other proactive approach to try and get more listings?
Yeah, so, we're moving into an area that's more like high touch, low volume. So kind of the mass market, email only approach of like internet marketing isn't as effective with the types of sites we're selling now. So we're moving to things like workshops. We're doing some speaking at events. We're doing like in-person hangouts, those types of things. Like today, actually, we did a workshop here in Chiang Mai, Thailand, and we actually had one previous buyer and a couple of potential sellers that attended. We had like 12 people total, and we spent the day at the Shangri-La Hotel and just, had a good time. But it was, us getting to hang out with them directly and kind of like go over their issues, go over, our process for selling, our process for buying, et cetera. So I think that's the kind of quality stuff that we're doing now. We're also doing, like some paid advertisement, like remarketing, retargeting. Our guy Vincent, he's like our marketing director. He's been working on that specifically. And have you heard of after offers?
I have heard of after offers. Yeah,
dude, it's awesome. So we have a deal with them where we pay $1, and what they do is they send, there's a bunch. He has a marketplace problem too. So he's looking for people in the online business space that are willing to send subscribers to a second page where they can then choose, which other blogs or sites they want to opt into. And so we've been an advertiser with him. We pay him $1 per subscriber. So, people go to the second page and they see us and maybe a couple others, and they choose which people they want to subscribe to. And it only costs us $1 for an email subscriber. Now, we've done that. We've reverse engineered the math, and with some napkin math, we figured out that an email subscriber to us is worth like $15 in profit over 6 months. So, and looking at the after offer email subscribers, they're about half as involved as our typical organic subscriber. So you figure even at that, for $7.50 over 6 months, that's a huge win for us. So we're fine with after offers. We've been getting quite a few email subscribers that way. So yeah, Joe's been doing a lot of talking to buyers and sellers directly and connecting with them over the phone.
Yeah, so what I'm doing is, producing lists from different sources that our marketing director is putting together, and then warm calling them. I mean, these are people
they've subscribed, but they've given their email.
Or that maybe they've used the beta version of our evaluation tool and found it to be broken, but they submitted their information.
Yep.
So I've called those guys, or maybe we saw their listing on another platform like Biz Buy Sell, something like that. So we're gathering this information, and then I call them up and I just talk to them and I tell them about our process. And it's been very successful, very helpful, because especially on the higher end, those people want to do business over the phone. They're not the kind of guys that just are going to go on the internet, click the button, and send all their information away. They want to talk to a broker who's going to walk them through everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Some of the things that you guys are doing to market your business a little bit, I think those are some great ideas for sure. Now, Parent, did you have any follow-ups or final questions?
I kind of want to know what else you guys are doing. So you have the Empire Flippers Marketplace, but what else do you have your hands into.
So we've got this great keyword research tool. It's going to be a long tail pro killer. It's going to destroy long tail pro.
I'm going to have to squash you guys. Sorry.
I'm cutting that piece out of the podcast. It's done. No, just kidding, man. But no, we have some other things we're working on. One thing in particular is an investor program. So the idea is that there's obviously our bigger site sales go to people that have more cash than time, right? And so they're looking for maybe a more passive investment, or they have a team that can run the site and they've got cash, right? Mm-hmm. That they're looking to invest in these sites. But there's even people further up that spectrum that have way more cash and very little time. And so we've decided to test through like an investor program. Basically, this is a deal where, let's say someone buys a $100,000 website. And they don't want to run it at all. They want it to simply be a passive investment for them. So what they do is they're going to get, 50% or $2,500 a month, and they're going to get monthly reports on what we're doing with it. We then take, 50% or 25% of what's left, or 50% of what's left, which is $1,250 a month, and we use that for maintenance and growth. And then we take $1,250 for ourselves in terms of profit. So we get 25% for maintenance and growth, and 50% off the top goes the investor. And so we're testing through this. This is a real one-to-one relationship. So we're just doing a few as kind of an alpha test, honestly. But the opportunity we see for this is huge. Think about this, guys. So like instead of just doing one-to-one relationships, we start doing one-to-many, or we start putting together packages or portfolios where multiple people can invest. So let's say we have a $1 million package and we allow investments at $5,000, $10,000, $20,000, $50,000 levels, and they're all owning a piece of the portfolio. So we've been talking to some, I guess, higher level investors, either individual investors, but also some like fund guys. So, smaller private equity groups. And there's actually this one guy, he's a fund of funds. And they've been getting kind of interested in what we're talking about because the returns on this kind of undiscovered area in terms of like an investor's perspective are ridiculous. So yeah, I mean, it's really exciting. I mean, you can get to the point where we have a portfolio where people can buy and trade the shares inside of that portfolio on like a tertiary market or a second market. So yeah, that's kind of like the big picture, high level stuff. But right now we're just testing out like a smaller investment deal, and it looks to be really positive.
Yeah, and from our business perspective, it solves a business problem, which is brokers are only as good as their last month. And September was great for us. Will October be? I don't know. But the investor program allows us to get some recurring sort of business, which I'm sure you're seeing with stuff like Longtail Pro. That recurring business is awesome, right? Everyone wants that recurring revenue. And in the broker business, that's tough to get on a guaranteed level, and the investor program allows us to get that. So
what's really interesting about it too is, let's say that over time, we're continuing to build this out, and we build ourselves a track record, which basically looks at all the portfolios with our kind of initial investors, and then looks at the investors that we've added over time. Once we have that, we may have access to serious cash, right? Like guys with real money. I mean, look, Spencer, I'm a blue collar dude, right? Like my dad worked at the post office. I'm a blue collar kid. So this is shocking to me, but there are guys that manage funds that are worth $400 million, $500 million. And they have, 5% of that, $25 million reserved for crazy risky stuff. Right. And so maybe 10% of that maximum of that 5% could be put into something like this if it proves out. So there's a ton of cash out. So let's just make a little fake scenario where we have a 12-month track record of really good returns for individual investors and maybe even group investors. Now we've got people willing to fund this with serious cash. Our business model turns. We're now shopping other brokers and other places for sites that are available that meet our criteria for the investor program. And all we have are people reaching out looking for sites because we've got the money. It's an interesting idea.
And the great thing is our business would be set up ideally for that because our staff right now vets sites all day long. I mean, that's one of the major things that they do. So if this impressive program really takes off, with the current staff that we have right now, they're skilled in going out and finding the right sites that work for us.
Well, actually, they're skilled at the incoming sites, right? Right now, they're facing internally at the sites that are brought to us. But what if we just simply turn that on its head and we had them shop externally for deals that are outside of us? So, honestly, Spencer, I'm getting way ahead of myself, man. And who knows? This may flop, but you know me, dude. I'm the kind of guy. I'm like, oh yeah, I see the opportunity. Now we got to execute. So we're in the process of doing that right now. But I'm pretty stoked about it.
Yeah, I think there is a lot of opportunity. It's an exciting idea, and it's actually one that has been proven to work. In, like you mentioned, other areas.
Yeah,
obviously, but there are some publicly traded companies that's really all that they do. For example, one is Interactive Corp, IACI, for anybody that wants to look it up on, look up the stock ticker or whatever. But they just own a huge portfolio of websites. Yes, these are websites that are, making millions of dollars, a little bit bigger than what you're talking about. They own, I just looked it up real quick, but they own Ask.com, About.com, Match.com, Urban Spoon, and several other properties. But I mean, that's really all that is, exactly the model that you just described. They own, 40 something websites, and of course investors can buy individual shares of stock in that company. And so it's a model that can work, and I think it provides a lot of upside potential for you guys, and could move. I mean, who knows where you'll go, but I mean, it's certainly different than just the marketplace that you have. But it's a very interesting opportunity, I think, for sure.
We're all in such a crazy space, right? Because there's so much opportunity here, and it's such an early market, right? And so these investors are looking for deals where they can get in really early. One of the questions we get from these potential investors is like, look, if I start off early, can I get first dibs in the next round, right? So they want to make sure that they're kind of locked in to getting the opportunity to hit it second, because the investment world works like if you see something amazing, you better jump on it before the margins get squashed, right? So that's the perspective they're coming from. And it's true. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out kind of in our space in terms of like websites and online assets and businesses. It's really interesting.
But as for the rest of our business, for your listeners who don't know, we've jettisoned everything else. So we sold our outsourcing company in September. We've given away pretty much everything. We've sold off all of our niche sites, our entire library. I just gave away our last property yesterday in Teletheme, which was a theme that we had for websites. Yeah. So everything else is gone now. All we have is the marketplace and the investor program.
Yeah, buddy, we're doubling down, man. We're on it. So like we just feel awesome. Like there's such opportunity here. We really have to focus on this. And the side projects were a distraction. That's why before the show we're beating you up a little bit about what you're up to. But I like the projects you're working on. It's really interesting, and I know you. You've got your head on a swivel looking for new opportunities.
That's right.
And you don't want to get bored with one thing. It's just that we're in the position now that we think there's such opportunity here that if we don't knock this out, we're going to be kicking ourselves. So.
Yep, no, I agree, and I think that's what you have to do. I mean, if you do want to hit a home run with something, you need to focus on it. And so I actually think it's a good move that you guys have kind of divested of all your websites and the Teletheme and everything else. So I'm excited to see your marketplace growing. I look to it as a place where I eventually expect to be selling my sites. Once I grow a couple of these. I want to sell them there. So I love what you guys are doing over there. And any sort of parting words of wisdom, if you will, or anything else you'd like to leave with us before we end the podcast here?
Not much, Spencer. Just wanted to thank you and Perrin for having us on the show, man. Really appreciate it. Love what you guys are doing over at Niche Pursuits. And, just thanks for having us on. And we hope we gave your listeners some value.
Yeah, and I'm really glad to see you guys taking it with your chins up with this last PBN update, and you'll get through it, and I'm sure things will turn around and you'll be better for it.
You guys are crushing it. You're going to do some cool stuff. I don't doubt it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, guys. Appreciate it. But most of all, once again, just want to thank you guys for coming on the podcast and sharing what's going on in your business with your marketplace and everything else, and sort of the advice that you've given both buyers and sellers as they look to potentially buy or sell sites. So once again, just thanks a lot.
Thanks, guys.
All right. Bye-bye.